What is up, you freaky folks? My name is Nick, and welcome to my channel, where I cover all things horror, whatever you're watching, I'm making videos about. And it's been a minute since I've made a video on the best horror movie recommendations on Netflix, so what better time for an update? And even if you've already watched movies like The Autopsy of Jane Doe, The Black Coat's Daughter, Creep 1 and 2, Under the Shadow, Holidays, The Invitation, Green Room, Cam, Anaconda, The Perfection, The Ritual, Sweetheart, Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, We Summon the Darkness, and even Shark Night. Well, that's perfectly fine because I have 13 movies to recommend you watch this October. Immediate content warning, I'm looking at the full spectrum of horror. I know a lot of people will distinguish between that's a psychological thriller, that's a supernatural thriller, that's blah 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 blah. I'm here to have a good time, and I hope you are too, but I am only talking about movies that are currently streaming in the US. Maybe get a VPN if you need to. I'm not sponsored, so none of those bastards get a shout out. Number 13 is Zodiac, the true crime epic from David Fincher. This thriller follows the investigation of the Zodiac serial killer in 1970 San Francisco. This is where the genre police are nowhere gonna pop out and say, this is a thriller, it's not horror enough for me. Well, I would counter, have you seen this movie? Because there are 3 scenes in particular that I think make this 100% a horror film because they at least terrify the living hell out of me. There's the scene in the park, the scene in the car, and the scene in the basement. I'm sure you guys know already what I'm talking about. That certainly does it for me, and I know this movie is long, but it's totally worth it if you want to revisit it, or if you haven't watched it already, now would be a great time to check it out. Number 12 is House of a Thousand Corpses. Rob Zombie's feature directorial debut is also one of my favorite Halloween movies. It's Halloween in 1970s Americana as a group of friends on a road trip become entangled with the deranged and depraved Firefly family. This movie is absolutely bonkers. It creates its own world where mutilation and torture are family activities, yet it also happens to be a damn funny good time. What's the deal with this movie? Couldn't tell ya, but it has all of the Halloween vibes that I'm looking for. Number 11 is Killer Clowns from Outer Space. In case you need to recover from that madness, this camp classic is the opposite type of bonkers, but equally fun. A bunch of creepy alien clowns land on Earth and begin harvesting as many humans as they can find to turn into blood smoothies. This movie genuinely freaked me out as a kid because the clowns use things like pies and cotton candy to kill people, and I'm just like, I like pies and cotton candy. Don't ruin it for me. But it did. Now as an adult, I can enjoy Killer Clowns for the goofy fun that it is. Obvious 80s cheese warning, but if you can get into it, this is the ultimate B-movie. Number 10 is The Boy, a PG-13 thriller about an American nanny who travels to England to look after a kid. But once she gets there, she learns her task is actually to look after a creepy doll while the elderly owners go on vacation. Honestly, how many red flags does one person need? As strange events begin to occur, our heroine believes there is something very real about Brahms the doll. The Boy is mostly a basic PG-13 scary movie with 1.5 million jump scares, but it's the ending that really does it for me. I know it'll make or break it for most audience members. I happen to really enjoy it. While this movie might be dumb as hell, I think it's also a scary good time. Number 9 is Session 9, because I had to. It's a psychological horror about a group of men in an asbestos cleaning crew who are working on a rundown mental hospital. After old files are uncovered, a current evil strikes the group. This is one that I've heard people talk about for years, and I remember seeing it when it came out on DVD, and it just didn't click for me. But I thought, I better give this a second shot just in case I think it should end up on the list, and I'm glad I did because this definitely deserves to be recommended. It's a different type of horror film, it's a slow burn, and I don't really want to get into it because it's all about the reveal towards the end. But if you haven't watched Session 9 already, Halloween time is always the best time to give a horror movie a shot. Number 8 is Don't Knock Twice, a supernatural thriller about a troubled young woman who moves in with her estranged mother after invoking the wrath of the witch from a local urban legend. The two reconnect as paranormal events begin to take over their lives. It's a pretty standard ghost movie, but I like both Katie Sackhoff and Lucy Boynton who star as the leads. And if you're looking for some horror on the lighter side, I think this one has a solid mother-daughter relationship relationship that keeps things grounded and interesting. Number 7 is What Keeps You Alive, a survival thriller about a lesbian couple who go to stay at a cabin in the woods when one believes the other is not who she claims to be. What follows is a bloody fight for survival, and you know both of them can't make it out alive. I cannot stop talking about this movie. This is probably the 4th time I've mentioned it in a video in the last like 4 months. I love this movie. It is so good, and while it isn't a traditional Halloween horror movie, it is set in the woods and has those fall vibes because it's set in Canada where it looks like it's always fall. Hands down, one of my favorite horror movies of the 2010s. If you haven't watched it by now, well, you're just plain missing out. Number 6 is The Evil Dead. Time for a throwback, all you 80s horror fans. The Evil Dead is the cult classic quintessential cabin in the woods movie. A group of friends on a weekend getaway conjure up demonic entities that begin possessing them one by one. I know this is very low budget and cheesy, so many of you won't even with this one, but I saw The Evil Dead when I was way too young, so it will always be a little creepy and disturbing to me. But if you prefer the sequel, that's over on Hulu. Number 5 is As Above, So Below. This found footage flick is about a group of explorers who venture into the catacombs beneath Paris, France, where they discover a secret evil that will leave them fighting for their lives. While this movie is not fun to talk about without spoilers, I know people love to hate found footage, but I think this one utilizes the format to great effect to enhance the claustrophobic suspense as well as the desperation of the character's plight. And I have to say, what really does it for me with this one is that it feels like adventure horror. I wish we had a whole ton of movies that were like horror Indiana Jones, but we don't. So until we get some more, I'm just gonna have to keep recommending As Above, So Below. Number 4 is Hush, a home invasion thriller about a deaf woman living in the middle of nowhere who is targeted by a masked murderer over the course of one terrifying night. Home invasion movies are my jam, but I know a lot of people don't like them. I don't know what isn't scary to you about some crazy person trying to break into your damn home. Is that not like the worst case scenario? Who are you? Scared of ghosts and shit moving your dishes around? Have you never had a bad roommate? But Hush is a home invasion movie I know most horror fans can get behind, and it's made by the newest master of horror, Mike Flanagan, the guy behind The Haunting of Hill House, The Haunting of Bly Manor, and Gerald's Game. Other Netflix picks you can watch this month. Number 3 is Sleepy Hollow, my favorite Halloween movie. Johnny Depp plays Ichabod Crane, who is sent to the village of Sleepy Hollow to investigate mysterious deaths that may be linked to the legend of the Headless Horseman. This was one of the first horror movies that I watched all the way through as a kid, so it has that special place in my heart. It might not be especially scary or actually Halloween themed, but it is so old school horror that I think it's perfect for October. It's Tim Burton directing a big budget horror film. What more do you want? Number 2 is Poltergeist. This 80s scarefest is about a family who begins to experience paranormal events, but they don't live in some creepy old house. These horrors are playing out right in the middle of the suburbs. This movie scarred a whole bunch of 80s kids. Even though it's not that scary nowadays, it's still a ton of fun. I consider this to be the original Conjuring movie because it's just a fun house of scares. I'm not even into supernatural horror all that much, and even I think this is a Halloween must-watch. Number 1 is The Silence of the Lambs, easily one of the best horror movies ever made, and I will not even engage in that argument that this isn't a horror movie. Again, have you seen it? Clarice Starling is an FBI trainee tasked with collecting information from the brilliant cannibal killer Hannibal Lecter in order to track down an active serial killer known as Buffalo Bill. This movie is absolutely masterful. Every time I watch it, I have a greater appreciation for it. The writing is perfect, the acting is on point, the direction is phenomenal. The Silence of the Lambs is perfect in my book, and it is leaving at the end of the month, so I know it won't be around for long, but it's so good, it definitely deserves to be at the top of this list. What are your favorites? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. As always, I greatly appreciate it. Hopefully you've got some good stuff to watch this month. I'm telling you, I'm like up to my eyeballs in horror movies. I'm not complaining though. Feel free to follow me on Instagram, subscribe to my channel, and hit that bell so you don't miss any creepy content. I just have to thank you guys again, especially if you made it all the way to the end of the video, because it's Halloween season, it's my favorite time of the year, and I'm having the most fun. That's it for this video, but I won't stop you from watching another.